realize that everyone here is successful in some way. If anybody here is a total failure, please stand up. Yeah, it's just me and these two guys. Sorry. Everyone here is successful, so that's why you were either invited or accepted to Inc. People look up to you. You're acclaimed and you're accomplished. You have a great reputation, and your painful years of struggling and failure are behind you, and that's the problem. Because when you're green, you grow, and when you're ripe, you rot. If you're not failing, you're not learning. And I know you're into learning, or you wouldn't have come here. So let's look at 3 big reasons why you need to make a real effort to start failing again. Number 1, if you're not failing, you're not learning. And I mean this literally. So you know the way that you build muscle, the way that a muscle gets bigger, is if in a gym, if you're doing something that kind of goes beyond your capacity and you're doing that, inside the little muscle fibers are tearing. And over the next couple days, as they repair themselves a little bigger and stronger each time. That's how muscles grow bigger. So that's why they say no pain, no gain, and it's the same with the brain. So take a look at these 2 sets of words for a minute. The set on the right intentionally is missing a letter. So take 10 seconds and read through all these pairs of words. Okay? So tests show that when quizzed afterwards, people remember 3 times as many words from the right-hand column that was missing a letter. It's as if when your brain kind of reached that missing letter, you had to struggle for just a second to figure it out. And that little struggle made all the difference. That's what kind of really lodged it into your memory. Just a little bit of effort made all the difference in the world. So in a similar test, there was a page full of some facts, and they gave to a bunch of people to study it. The first half of the group studied the page of facts 4 separate times in 4 sessions. The second half of the group studied it only once, but then they were quizzed 3 times afterwards on what they had learned, and each time they were shown their mistakes after taking the quiz. A week later, they brought everybody back to see what they would remember from the test they had taken a week before, and the people in the second group remembered 50% more, meaning they had studied only 1/4 as hard as the first group, but they had remembered 50% more. So again, mistakes teach better than preparation. Being in over your head and failing at things is necessary to learn. And this isn't just for memorizing things, but for doing things. So I went to music school, and a music teacher there told us that if what you're doing in the practice room sounds good, you're not really practicing. And I didn't get what he meant until now. Because when I would listen into some people practicing, you could hear them just going through a whole piece start to finish. And it sounded perfect. But then every now and then I got to listen into Mark Turner, who was like one of the best musicians in school, and every time I listened into him, it sounded like shit, shit. I was like, wow, he's terrible, but he's amazing, you know. So doing what you know is fun, but it doesn't improve you. The most effective way to improve at anything is to make these mistakes and learn from the mistakes and do the difficult and painful things over and over again. They call this deliberate practice, and there are 2 brilliant books about it if you're interested. The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle and Talent is Overrated by Jeff Colvin. And one of the key points is that if what you're doing is fun, you're really not learning. So, Michael Jordan, basketball star, your turn.
I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed.
Thank you, Nike advertising. Okay, so reason number 1 you need to fail is because if you're not failing, you're not learning. But it would be a shame for you guys to think that this is just some little academic experiments. Like, okay, bald guy, next time I need to remember word pairs, I'll remember that. So a voice inside you is probably saying, like, all right, look, failure is not an option. Yeah, that's nice. When I was a student, yes, okay, you're in the practice room at music school, that's cute. But I've got a business, I've got competition, people depend on me, people look up to me, I've got a reputation to protect. If I fail hard, my reputation is shot. People would lose respect for you, right? Well, that brings us to the second biggest point, the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. Fascinating stuff that shows that kind of like, some people are introverts or extroverts. The fixed mindset is if you believe that talent is innate. If you feel like who I am is because I'm a natural. I am a natural artist. I'm just always been good with numbers. I'm good with words. I'm a good public speaker, whatever. So they believe that some are and some aren't. On the other hand, if you have the growth mindset view of the world, believes that everything you are is because you worked hard. So it doesn't matter if somebody was a natural at something. With any amount of practice, somebody could even surpass those that were a natural. So the big reason why this matters to you is that the fixed mindset hurts you, very literally. So they made a test that started out easy and got very hard. In fact, got impossible. The point was to give a test to people that they would start out full of encouragement, going, wow, this is easy, I'm good at this, and then hit a point where every single person failed at the test. The reason they did this is because they asked them afterwards, what will you do before the next test? Right? So every single person failed this test. They said, what will you do before the next test? Those in the growth mindset said, well, I'll study harder, of course. But those in the fixed mindset said, I'll study less, of course. I mean, why bother? I'm obviously just not good at this. So people with a fixed mindset kind of buckle when it comes to failure. Reason number 2 why this matters, and parents pay attention here, is where this mindset comes from. When parents tell their kids very well-meaning things like, you are a brilliant boy, you are a genius, you're so smart, look at you, you're a natural artist, you're so good at this. You mean well, but it creates a fixed mindset in people. On the other hand, if you praise not the person, but their work, and if you would say, great work, you worked really hard at this, then it creates the growth mindset. What's fascinating, though, is how easy it is to change. So remember this same test again. It starts easy, it gets incredibly hard. They gave it to a bunch of people, but this time, those who were told, you must have worked really hard. The next time they took the test, their score went up 30%. On the other hand, those who were just told, you must be really good at this. Next time they took the test, their score went down 20%. Only 6 words chosen on a random group of people made the difference of 50% in their performance. So, why does this matter to my successful audience here? It's because you're successful, people are constantly telling you you're brilliant. They say, you are a genius filmmaker, you are a natural artist, or I so love your work, I think you're brilliant. So even if you didn't naturally believe this stuff at first, you almost can't help it when you're surrounded by people telling you that you are brilliant. So, Josh Waitzkin wrote this book called The Art of Learning, and Carol Dweck's book is called Mindset. It's about this stuff. Josh Waitzkin's book is actually the one that turned me on to this. Josh Waitzkin was one of those child prodigy chess geniuses, like a world championship chess master by the time he was 1. And so he wrote a book about those days. In fact, if you ever saw the movie Searching Bobby Fischer, that was made about him. So he wrote a book, and when he was looking back at that, he said, there were a bunch of kids like me, that we were all child chess prodigies. And he said, the funny thing is, you'd see the kids who had been told their whole life, you are a prodigy, you are a brilliant boy, you're a genius. And when they lost their first championship, they completely buckled and failed because it just destroyed their whole kind of fixed image of who they were. All they can think then is, oh, everybody was wrong, I'm not. Whereas those who always had the growth mindset kept going. So he's the one that actually turned me on to Carol Dweck's work and that book, Mindset. So the other reason this matters to you is even if those of you, especially from California, are here going, yeah, I know, we live in a state full of failure, this is what we do, we celebrate and encourage failure, that's the whole Silicon Valley thing, right? So even if you're feeling you got this, don't forget the importance of the people that you were hiring, for example. NASA did something interesting where when they were hiring for astronauts, they didn't hire anybody that hadn't failed at something before. Because they didn't know if in hiring, if somebody's had a perfect track record to this point, who knows if they're going to buckle the first time they hit resistance. So they only hired people that showed a clear evidence of having failed at something and then recovered from that. Okay, singing lessons. In music school, I took singing lessons from a teacher who, when I would come in, he'd say, okay, sing me this song just the way you wrote it. So I'd come in and say, okay. Radio and TV shows taught her everything she knows. And I'd sing the whole 3-minute song, and he'd go, okay, now do it up an octave. I'd say, what do you mean up an octave? I can't sing that high. He'd say, I don't care, go. Radio and TV shows she knows. It was painful. It was horrible. It sounded like a mouse being strangled. But he made me do it for the whole 3 minutes. And you got to admit, by the end of 3 minutes, you kind of find something that you wouldn't have tried otherwise. He said, okay, now do it down an octave. Go. Shit. Radio, TV show, starter of the things you know. Again, so it sounded terrible. But again, he made me do it for the whole 3 minutes. Then he'd say, double speed, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, radio and TV shows, starter of the things you know. And all of a sudden, I had to get my enunciation. Now he said half speed. 1, 2, 3. And I would sing the whole song half speed, which you find it changes. You find new things in your phrasing when you take breaths into shorter phrases. And then he'd say, okay, now do it like the person you're singing about is on trial and you're the prosecuting lawyer, go. And he said, make sure to jab your finger like this, go. And so he made me sing the whole song like that. He said, okay, now do it like you're Mick Jagger covering a Derek Sivers song, go. And I stood there and did it. He said, no, Mick Jagger never stands still. Get up and run around the room, go. So the whole point is, this is kind of practicing to fail. The whole point is, it was a great reminder that the way I brought it in is not the way it goes. It was just one silly decision I made at some point, and there is no one way it goes. So the big question for the audience then is, so which one of these versions was a failure? You had such a perfect chance to heckle me there. But no, obviously it's a silly question, right? So if everything you do is just an experiment, there is no such thing as failure. Okay, last story. Ceramics class. I love this. Opening day of a ceramics class, the teacher told half the room, you guys will be graded for this whole semester, you're only going to make one pot, and on the last day of class, you will be graded on its perfection, okay? This whole half of the class, you are going to be graded on sheer weight. On the final day of class, I'm going to bring in my bathroom scale and weigh what you've done. I don't care what you've done, make as many pots as you want. I don't care how they look. I'm not even going to look at them. I'm just going to weigh them. If you make over 50 pounds of pots, you get an A. Over 40 pounds of pots gets a B, etc. So the interesting thing is on the last day of class, a surprising result. There was an outside observer who came in and didn't know about this experiment, and all of the best works of pottery came from the quantity group. It just based on weight. Because for the whole semester, they had been making lots of pots and constantly making things and making mistakes and learning from them, whereas the people who had just been working on one perfect pot had nothing to show for it than a whole bunch of kind of grandiose theories and one mediocre pot. So why you need to fail? First, it's required for learning. Second, it keeps you in the growth mindset. And third, it reminds you that everything is just an experiment. We all have these perfectionist tendencies, so forcing ourselves to fail is a great way to kind of break that paralysis. Lastly, I love this there's this theory in jazz that if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. It's kind of like art school, too. If you go to art school and you're just drawing perfect pictures of apples, your fellow students will not think you're cool. You have to force yourself to kind of go beyond that, fail at something. And that's it. Thank you very much.